Greetings and salutations. Welcome back once again to more One Talent Challenge. In our last episode, we finished off Duriel. We are headed into Act 3. We already got the Spider Forest waypoint. But going back to the waypoint's really not going to help us. I am picking up right where I left off. I literally just got it done, uploaded it, went from there. And you know what gets me? I've had I've had some things. One of my friends and talked to me about why am I doing unedited videos? Why do I not take the time to edit the videos and everything? And I had this discussion with him quite a bit of a length the other day. Probably 25 minute discussion. And I said, well, whenever anybody edits a video, you never get to see the raw, unfiltered content per se, right? You see what you get to see what the person wants you to see, and in most cases nobody cares. Like, oh, they just like to see the highlight reel of big flashy things. Like, oh yeah, man, did you see them do that sick move in Call of Duty? Did you see him, clutch out this one win or whatever? Or did you see that harrowing escape in a hardcore character, etc., so on and so forth? Now, well, that's all well and good. What it does is it feeds to a very short attention span. Now, normally I wouldn't be, passionate about this sort of thing and really be trying to drive home a point here, but the world has gotten to the point of TikTok attention spans. Like, if you can't hold their attention for more than 15 seconds, get it, right? And that's a shame, because I think delving further and further into a deeper thought process and into a deeper thought-provoking point in time makes for better content, and it allows people to expand their mind ever so slightly. Now, for some people, doing deep quantitative thoughts isn't fun for them. It's not in their wheelhouse because it's not enjoyable. Not saying that they can't do it. It's just that they don't enjoy doing it. And that's to be taken into consideration. Not everybody enjoys deep quantitative thinking. I am, however, one of those people that do enjoy it. I enjoy going down a what-if scenario, and really panning out in front of me all things that are possible. All possible victories and defeats, right? This is one of the reasons I leave my videos unedited, is because you can see that victory and defeat. You can see both. And it shows that juxtaposition of success and failure, which is rare to see these days. I mean, yeah, you can watch fail videos a lot. I mean, they're everywhere, right? And you can see success videos everywhere. They're legitimately everywhere. But nothing encapsulates the dichotomy we live in quite like seeing both at the same time. It's almost Shakespearean in a way. And I know you're thinking, why is it almost Shakespearean in a way? Well, Shakespeare was believed to have said that comedy and drama are but two sides of the same coin. So tragedy and comedy and tragedy are two sides of the same coin. Which is what made his dramas and plays so world-renowned, because in the comedy plays there were tragedy, and in the tragedy plays there was comedy. Having both there allows for a more organic feel, allows for a more organic experience. And I think that this generation of, TikTok attention spans is causing a less of an organic feel when it comes to content. Now, I mean, some people do like it because they don't have a lot of time on their hands, and during a quick lunch break, they can't take in a 30-minute video, or they can't take in a 15-minute video or whatever. And so they want those 15-second, story in 10 seconds, story in 15 seconds, that kind of thing. They just want that quick, get it in there, see it, get the reaction, and then leave. The downside of this, of course, is it makes everybody into a reactionary. And when I say a reactionary, I'm talking even to the degree of an overreactionary. People that go above and beyond and become almost melodramatic to a point. Making a mountain out of a molehill, if you will. So it's detrimental not just to the attention span. Meditation is very healthy for you. Being able to take the time to acknowledge everything around you in a mindful way, and quantify everything around you in a mindful way, but not have to constantly acknowledge that it's there. You know it's there. You've seen it. You can sense it. You can hear it. But you don't have to sit there and say, yes, I'm aware of it at all times. You can remove yourself from the equation and just let your mind drift. That type of meditative practice is very healthy because it allows you to disconnect from legitimately everything that is not worth the time or effort. And meditating is not about thinking of nothing. It's not about, concentrating on something. Ew, that one is terrible. Gore axe? Gore shovel. I already have one. Apparently things are going to get gory because now I have 2 gore shovels. But being able to have that meditative moment allows you to unplug and unwind and just disconnect from everything that is not currently relevant at that moment. And having that ability to do that is very beneficial, especially in today's age. It makes it very difficult to get to that point when, people are sitting there scrolling through their phone, watching TikToks, or scrolling through their, not that I don't think anybody uses Facebook anymore, but scrolling through and seeing like Facebook feed, Facebook Reels, Instagram feeds, anything like that. It's not good. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm, the ideal model of it all, because I too even thumb through Twitter. But generally, what I'll do is I'll put together some form of, at least, how do I want to put this? Poignant thought. And I'll post it, usually as a reply. I'm not sitting there thumbing through Twitter, taking in garbage media and memes. I mean, there's plenty of memes, don't get me wrong. I'm a bit of a meme lord myself. But at the same time, I don't sit there and do just that. I try to even give people advice. Whether or not they take it's up to them. Just the fact that I post it on there is one thing. Now, some of the advice I give is not necessarily what I would say optimistic. Okay? This brings up the whole optimism versus pessimism versus realism debate. What's the healthiest way of looking at things? Well, that's based on the person's perspective. But my perspective, if you look at everything with a realistic eye, you look at it for what it is and the truth that exists before you, and then put a slightly pessimistic spin on it, it's a healthier way to look at it. Now, I will say this for a reason, that people will say, how's that a healthy way to look at things? And the best way I can elaborate that is, if you look at something and you say, this is, this is what it is, and there it is realistically in front of you, you know what it is. And then you take a step back and you say, this is the worst case scenario. I'm expecting the worst case scenario. If you expect the worst case scenario and the worst case scenario comes to pass, guess what? You're right. You get to brag about it. You get to say, haha, see, I was right. The worst case scenario came true. I knew it would. Yeah, nobody likes people to gloat, but at least you get that little feather in your cap that you knew it was going to happen, right? However, if the worst case scenario doesn't come to pass and it ends up being better, it's a bonus. So I don't see how that's a bad thing. Either you're right or it's a bonus. Now, looking forward to something is different than optimism. That's where I think people get a lot of things wrong. I think they conflate and they confuse things. They say, well, I'm looking forward to this. And they're like, oh, well, that's optimism. Not really. Looking forward to something just means you are anticipating its arrival. It's coming and you're excited. That is by no means being optimistic. However, saying something along the lines of, oh, that's gonna be good, that's optimism. That's where things change. Because being optimistic is not inherently a bad thing, right? There are some people that have that really heavy optimism. And, more power to them, admittedly. But you have people that have seen what optimism can do, and it's not always a good thing. There are people out there that they're optimistic, and they're so heavily inundated with optimism that they can't see reality in front of their own face. And it ends up causing them harm. Because they end up being wrong about something, and it comes back to haunt them. That's not always the case, but it does happen. Knowing that, optimism happens to work for some people, it doesn't work for me. And this circles back around to where I was saying that deep quantitative thought is not always for everybody. Not because it can't, like I said, not because it can't do it, but because it's not, it doesn't entertain them. And I guess having that entertainment from that thought is the key. Because if you're entertained by it, then you're entertained by it. What can I do, right? I don't personally have a TikTok. I don't. And I never will. I honestly don't see a point in it. And a lot of people will say, well, TikTok's a great media in which to do short form video. Like really short form. Which is 10, 15 seconds. Minute, 2 minutes. Medium form video is like half hour, 45 minutes. Long form videos, a few hours. Now, don't get me wrong. Would love to do a long form video of doing like a 3-hour play session of something. I don't think that my computer can hold it, realistically, with the amount of hard drive space I have. But I would love to do like a 3-hour session of a game. But realistically speaking, would anybody sit there for 3 hours and watch? No. Having it be about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, right in that ballpark, is usually the comfortable zone. Because people have the time to sit down, in the bathroom or whatever for 15 minutes and take in a video. People have the time to sit down for 15, 20 minutes at work on their 15-minute break, 20-minute during lunch or whatever, take it in and see it then. Once you push higher than that, it kind of gets to be more of a burden than it does a blessing. At least that's my take on it. I mean, I could be all, wet. It could be all crazy behind, be all crazy and be wet behind the ears, etc. I could be way off in the left field and, just be, I guess, I can't really even say pontificating, but just speaking for the fact of putting my opinion out there, almost like speaking for the fact of speaking. I could be wrong, but that's the glory part about an opinion. It's not technically wrong, nor is it technically right. An opinion is just that. It's someone's viewpoint on something that is objectively there. It's no different than, say, like two people looking at an apple sitting on a table, right? You take, one person takes a look at the apple. It's sitting on the table, and what they see is a bright red, delicious apple. Meanwhile, the other person on the other side of the table looks across and sees an apple that is green. Because one side of the apple appears green. One side of the apple appears red. Now, meanwhile, there's a third individual who's sitting over there and it appears gray because he's colorblind. However, that joke aside, which I know, don't joke about the colorblind people. No, look, it's a joke. Right? It's a joke. I know people that are shade blindness and they can't see shades of blue. And I don't mean like colorblind to it. They can't differentiate between like dark navy blue, black, and regular blue, and other things like that. They just can't see the shade difference. So they have mild shade blindness. Except that, it's all about perspective. It's much of everything in life is about perspective. You have to be able to take a look at it from a different perspective. By doing so, it allows you to gain a new outlook on things. It allows you to see things from a new angle, from a new lens, and even from a new perspective, new people's point of view. That perspective is the same thing as the optimism, pessimism, and realism. That's all a matter of perspective. I'm having this huge waxing of philosophical thoughts while trying to navigate the spider forest. And I think to myself, would anybody really be interested in hearing this dissertation? And quite honestly, there are some out there that would. There are some people out there that can entertain the listening part, but just they can't really sit down and think it out completely. Like they can't quantify it in an understandable way for themselves. It's not like it's. I'm not saying it like that's a bad thing. There are some people that just they cannot wrap their head around it, and that's fine. It's a perfectly normal thing. Some people have I can't even really call it a simplistic view per se. It's a more duality view. And there's no shades of gray for them. It's not like a monotone gray scale. It's like either it's black or white. It's either exists or it doesn't. And a lot of people function in that duality in their head. And when they function inside that of that duality in their head, it's uh it's actually easier to live that way because you're not as worried about anything. Like you have less worries in your life because if it's not A, it's B. If you think about it, right? You have that duality in your head. It's not A, it's B.
Good day.
Having that simplistic duality. I hate to use the term simplistic because it makes it sound like they're simple minded when they're not. It's it's more of a
Hello there.
simplistic viewpoint more than it is about ignorance because it's not ignorance. There are extremely intelligent people out there that can only see in the duality. So it either is or it isn't. There is no sitting down and really putting forth a deep thought process toward it for them. And that's it's honestly something to be admired because it's that perspective of here you are as an individual and you actually live a less stressful existence because you can see in just the duality. And by seeing in just the duality, it makes it so much easier to really have the whole come what may attitude and say, you know what? It's gonna happen in life. This is the reason why it's gonna happen in life. And so be it. It causes a lot less stress because if you had the choices between A or B and you know it's not A, you know it's B. Whereas people that have that very complex mindset of being able to see in grayscale and being able to see multifaceted everything, they sit there and they go, well, okay, well, we know it's not A, it's possibly B, and it could be C, D, E, or F. Now we have to find out which one it is, C, D, E, or F. And it's like, it just overcomplicates things. And that's why having that really straightforward, almost simplistic mindset is a good thing. That's the truth. I admire that. I admire the ability to be able to look at something and simplify it down and not really go into the complexities. That's something I've been unable to do. I analyze and I overanalyze. That's just me. Then again, it's also fun. That's also fun for me. So it's a strange existence. I'll just say that. It's a strange life. Well, it's not very stressful for me, but it is stressful for the people that do the same thing. There's a lot of people out there that overthink, and they overthink because they can't help themselves. They just get stuck in that loop of overthinking. For me, overthinking is fun. Very fun. For others, not so much. And for them, I apologize that they can't enjoy the overthinking. I understand their perspective. But, man, just overthinking's a blast. Of course, I've had people say, well, wait a minute, wait, how is overthinking a blast? How is it fun? You're always constantly worried about something. It's like, but I'm not. I overthink, sure. No two ways about that. There's no argument there. But within that overthinking, I come up with scenario 1, 2, 3, and 4 And then of those scenarios, I come up with results of those scenarios, choices that those scenarios have, sub scenarios that are created from the said scenario, and then the choices and sub scenarios that they have. And I sit there and I constantly play them all out. And what is the optimal solution? That is incredibly fun for me. I've never been the standard individual that just looks at life before him and says, you know what? Just take it as it is. I sit there and I go, but why? And that amount of critical thinking. Oh, hello. Unique ring. Banal heal. Well, it's got replenish life and regenerate mana, so I do like that. I'll put that on over this. Because unfortunately, I mean, yeah, the extra gold for monsters is nice. Offensive auras. Oh, wish I could hold on to that for my paladin. That's huge. But I'm not going to. Not going to at all. I play by those rules. I set the rules and I'm playing by them. I wanted the Manald heal for the replenished life. That's huge. The +6, that's basically like having a second prayer aura. And of course, the regenerate mana helps, but it's not necessarily crucial because I don't spend all that much mana anyway. But back to what I was saying, like, thinking all those things out and plotting them out and planning them out and having contingencies and backup plans. The reason that's fun for me is because I kind of want to see how they play out. I want to see which one comes to pass. It's strange. It really is strange in a way. And I was raised that way. I was raised to be an open thinker and to freely constantly question everything. Like, one of the biggest questions I always ask anything at all is who stands to gain. That's like one of the best questions you could ask on anything is who stands to gain. And it doesn't matter what it is. Anything at all. It's like, who stands to gain, and then what are they gaining? Usually, if you can answer both those questions, you'll figure out why they're doing it. Why and how they're doing it. And to a lesser extent, you know, the reasoning behind it and the ramifications of said maneuver. Whatever it may be. It could be something as simple as an NFL trade. For example, like, this one player could get traded to another team, and you're like, well, who stands to gain? Is it the team that traded for the player, or is it the team that received the player? And then you find out what they gained from it, and you're like, okay, now I know what they've gained, and I know why they did it. Short couple of logic jumps later, and you can actually figure out an even bigger picture. I mean, that's not to say that you can't use the same, questionnaire and end up finding corruption, because that's generally how that happens too. You'll say who stands to gain, and 9 times out of 10 it will be like, oh, it's the government, or oh, it's something, and then you're like, oh, okay, so it's corruption. That's the downside of asking who stands to gain. And that's really, it's a very powerful phrase. Another thing I like, aside from his itchy nose, I can't stand that. Another thing I like about the Diablo 2 videos is I like being able to just kind of chill and just bounce thoughts, ideas, and just stream of consciousness, and have that chat. You know, with Call of Duty, I'm so focused on trying to snipe that it's not. I can't really say it's completely distracting, but it definitely ranks
Hello.
right up there for being distracting.
Yes.
Also, Act 3 is quite sizable. Um, as you can see, we're already at the half hour mark, and I haven't really made a dent in Act 3. But that's gonna have to do it for this one. We did make it through to the Great Marsh. We have the Great Marsh waypoint, which is a plus. I should probably consolidate these gems sometime in the future. Though, makes me wonder, is it really going to be worth it? Am I going to have to? Am I going to survive? We're going to have to find that all out on the next episode. So, I thank everybody for coming out, watching, and listening to me wax philosophic, make a couple of jokes, and just have kind of like a deep, thought-provoking conversation. I really hope people kind of start moving toward the whole meditation into having deep thoughts and deep provoking thoughts. So I think that'll do a lot better for society as a whole than just 15-second TikTok attention spans like an ADHD squirrel on sugar. But I digress. I thank everybody for coming out, watching, and enjoying some time here. I had a great time. I hope you did as well. Hopefully in the next couple of videos we'll get through Act 3 and into Act 4. But I hope everyone has a fantastic evening, a wonderful tomorrow, and as always, have a good one.